Hello and welcome to Nebula Talks. Before we begin, we have a few updates and reminders for you. We would love to have you be part of our Nebula community. And you can do so by logging on to www.nebula.com, where you can join communities related to your area of interest, register for upcoming Nebula Talks, book one-to-one skylifts, and view other upcoming events. You can also take this opportunity to connect with fellow learners or the speaker by sending a connection request. When you connect with the speaker, you will be able to contact them directly as well as receive updates about their upcoming talks. Kindly note that during this session, you will not be able to switch on your camera or unmute your mic. To ask questions during the talk, go to the audience chat, type your question, and select Post Your Question. If your question has not been answered during the talk, you will be notified once it's been answered, or if your question has not been answered during the talk, you can go to www.nebula.com and spin a quest, and your questions will be answered. Thank you for joining us today. We hope this talk broadens your horizons and takes you to new learning heights. Hi everyone, welcome to today's talk. My name is Sarah, and today we'll be discussing the common mistakes to avoid while attempting the IELTS academic reading section. All right, so we'll be talking about the common mistakes that students tend to make while they're preparing and or during the test, as well as how to avoid it and how to overcome it. So let's just get right into it. Right, so again, we're just going to discuss the common mistakes to avoid while attempting the IELTS reading section. But before we go into that, let's do a quick recap as to what the IELTS academic reading section is all about. First of all, it's really important to know and understand this test format, and I'll be going in a little bit more detail during this talk. But remember that the IELTS academic reading section lasts for 1 hour, and in that 1 hour, you will have to read through 3 passages and answer 40 questions. Okay. And also, let's do a quick recap about the assessment criteria, how you're going to be assessed. It's also really important to understand that as well. So basically, each correct answer is equal to 1 mark, and the raw score will correlate to a band score. So let's just quickly look at the table on the right side, where we can see the band scores and the raw score out of 40. All right, so we said that there are 40 questions. Each one carries 1 mark. All right, so just to explain in a little bit more detail, if you get a band score of 9, or if you get 40 out of 40, it translates to a band score of 9, 35 to 36 to 37 will translate to a band score of 8, so on and so forth. Okay, so it's really important to understand your assessment criteria and how you're going to be assessed. Again, not only for the reading section, but also the other sections as well. All right, now let's just dive right into today's talk topic. But first, we need to understand, why do mistakes happen in the IELTS reading module? All right, so first of all, the first mistake is time management. All right, again, as we discussed at the beginning, you have 1 hour to complete this paper. So what happens is we sometimes get a little into the whole passage. We might read through the whole passage, all 3 of them, and then not leave enough time to answer all 40 questions. All right, so here you really need to manage your time well, so that you can finish the paper on time and get those marks. And also what will happen is that you, again, might not leave enough time to go back and answer the questions that you've skipped. So time management is very, very essential during the IELTS academic reading exam. Also, the next one, why these mistakes happen, is lack of awareness and or ignorance. Okay, so to explain that a little bit further, if you are someone who might not have taken enough time to prepare for the IELTS, and in this case, the IELTS academic reading section, then you will be surprised on the test day of the different questions that might come up, how to attempt it, or you're just not aware of the test paper, or just ignorant about it. So this is why it's very important to leave yourself enough time for preparation for the IELTS. Again, not only this section, but for the whole 4 sections of the IELTS, so that you are ready to go on the day of your exam. All right, now let's go on to look at the common mistakes in the IELTS reading module. First of all, is ignoring the instructions or not reading the instructions carefully. Now, this is very important. Why? Because during the IELTS, you will be tested on every aspect, and that includes paying attention to the instructions. All right. Also, why are the instructions important? Why should you take that time to read the instructions? First of all, and second of all, the instructions gives you information about what you need to do and how many words you need to write for your answer. Okay, so it's very important to read the instructions so that you know what is being asked of you. All right, so for example, I have a couple of them here. Let's look at it. If the instructions read no more than 3 words, then you know that your word limit is 3 for that particular task. Similarly, number 2, the second example, if the instructions state choose 2 answers, but you only choose 1, again, you'll lose marks. And last but not least, another example is if you're instructed to write true or false for the true, false, and or not given questions, but instead you write yes or no, again, you will also lose marks. So that's why it's very, very important to pay attention to the instructions. Now, how can you avoid not missing out on these instructions? Spend at least 30 seconds or however long it takes you to skim through the instructions, understand it before going on to reading the questions and the passage. All right, leave yourself that much time. Again, 30 seconds is nothing, and I think it's worth it. So just spend that time to go through the instructions, maybe underline them if that helps you as well. Again, if it helps you remember no more than 3 words or no more than 2 words, or this is what I have to write, go ahead and underline that on your question paper. And also, in doing so, don't answer an X number of words. So again, that X stands for either 2 or more words or 3 or more words. Don't give them the opportunity to penalize you. Make sure you read it carefully and know what is being asked of you. All right. Okay, next up, time management. Now, we just discussed this at the beginning. It should be your top priority and it's extremely important. All right. Your limited time has to be utilized effectively. And I think I don't need to say too much about that. You need to leave yourself enough time to answer and read through all the questions and the passage as well. All right, and this is where preparing in advance comes in handy. All right, so I strongly suggest that you take enough time to prepare for each of the sections. Now, since we're speaking about the reading exam, prepare yourself and leave yourself enough time to go through the different question types. Do as many past papers or as many practice papers as you can in order to get an idea of how the layout is and how things are going to be structured. Again, for the different types of questions, understand and know how to do those, and as well as practice doing them as well, so that maybe you can see that, okay, when you're starting to practice, you might think you might take maybe an hour and a half to do the question paper, the whole reading question paper. And slowly, 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 you keep doing different question papers and you see how long it takes you. And ideally, I would advise that you try by the end of it to spend at least 45 minutes on the question paper and leave 15 minutes, that extra 15 minutes, to go through your answers, check them to see if they're correct, go back and answer the questions that you may have skipped, and so on and so forth. Okay? All right, so again, another tip to overcome it or to avoid this is that also if you get stuck on a particular word or phrase or a particular question, just move on and you can check it later. So that's why that I said spend 45 minutes to complete your whole exam, and that extra 15 minutes, which is probably key, to go back and check your work or check for the blanks that you missed out. All right. Moving on to the next common mistake, which is using the question booklet instead of the answer sheet. And this goes hand in hand with not leaving enough time to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. All right. Now, unlike the listening section where you'll have that extra 10 minutes, if you're doing the paper-based test, to transfer your answers onto the answer sheet, here in the reading section, you will be given a question booklet and an answer sheet, but whatever you write on your question booklet will not be counted as long as it's there. Okay, you have to transfer those answers onto the question paper. Now, again, if you're rushed for time, what you can do is that's why that again 15 minutes, the remaining 15 minutes that you leave yourself, if you happen to write any questions or any answers, sorry, on your question booklet, or if you've underlined something or made note of it, quickly go back and transfer those answers, anything on the question booklet, onto your answer sheet. Okay, and you need to leave yourself enough time to do that, as well as try not answering or try not spending too much time writing your answers on the booklet. Again, the good thing here is that you should be writing your exam in pencil. So it's easy if you make a mistake on the answer sheet to just erase it and write the correct answer. Now, if you don't feel like doing that, you can write it on the question booklet, but again, leave yourself enough time to write your final answers on the answer sheet. All right. And here, your tip to avoid this is, again, write your answers on the answer sheet. So that's why when you're practicing, try and do that. When you're preparing as well, when you're doing the different question papers, make sure that you probably can print out the sheet, or if you're doing it on the computer, use that as an example or a guide so that on the day of the exam, you know exactly how it works. All right, next up, leaving blanks. This is quite a common mistake that people tend to do. If they don't know the answer, they leave it blank. That's fine. But then again, if you don't leave enough time to answer those blanks or write your answer in the blank, that is, I'm saying blank, that's on your answer sheet, you end up losing marks. All right, remember that no answer equals no mark. And again, you need all the marks that you can get. All right, out of 40, it's best to try and get at least 35 or 40 in order to get a good band score for the reading section. So in order to avoid this, all you have to do is take an educated guess or make an educated guess, all right, especially in the multiple choice type of questions, because there, if it's out of 3, you have a 1 in 3 chance of getting it right, okay? And also, the answers will be in the text, so do make sure that you don't leave it blank, just take a guess. Again, just remember that you won't be penalized for wrong answers, so what's the harm? All right, so don't leave blanks, just answer. All right, next common mistake that we have is getting stuck on unknown vocabulary. Now, during the reading section in the passages, you might find that when you're skimming and scanning, or if you're just reading through, if you're taking time to read through, you might face some vocabulary that is unfamiliar to you, and that will happen. All right, you're not expected to know all the vocabulary and everything. So it's one of the biggest problems that students face. Again, answering the questions are more important than the word. Okay, so don't get too stuck on unfamiliar vocabulary. Just get the gist of the paragraph or of the sentence. And again, you don't need to understand the meaning of every word used in the passage. Okay, so again, tips to overcome this is that, again, take an educated guess or make an educated guess according to the context a word or phrase might be used in the passage or a sentence. Okay, so sometimes when you read the rest of the sentence or you read the rest of the paragraph, you'll get the gist of it and you'll start to understand, okay, this is what the word means. Now, that being said, if it's not important for you to know the meaning of the word, just ignore it. It's completely fine. But if it is something that you need to know the meaning of, then just go through the passage. Sometimes there's a little asterisk at the bottom which will tell you the meaning of the word. So just go through, scan through the passage and see if the word is defined. Otherwise, just go ahead and ignore it. Because if you spend so much time trying to understand the word, what will probably happen is you'll start to get stressed, you'll start to get nervous, and that's where some time goes as well. So again, one more time, I'm going to repeat this because it's a bit important. If you don't know the meaning, or if it's not important for you to know the meaning, just ignore it. All right, this next one is a biggie, all right? Copying the answer incorrectly. Okay, so now you'll be writing your answer. Sometimes you'll be in a hurry and you might copy the answer incorrectly. Now, honestly speaking, there should be no room for any errors, because what's going to be happening is you're going to be taking words and phrases from the passage and that's going to be your answer. So make sure that you are checking what you're writing. Again, in that 15 minutes that you leave yourself, or maybe 10 minutes, or if you don't have enough time, even 5 minutes, just take that time to make sure you've copied the answers correctly. Okay. Again, yes, when transferring your answer, copy the word exactly as it is in the passage. A point to note is that you are allowed to write in all capitals and or all lowercase, but here's where you'll lose marks is if you do not use capital forms for like the first letter of a proper noun, such as the United Kingdom or a title of the book. Okay, so make sure you know where capitalization is. What I would suggest is that you use the grammar rules for capitals and lowercase so that you don't have any issues. Okay, next, going with incorrect grammar. All right, first of all, let's look at why this happens. It's because of negligence. We don't pay attention and we don't give ourselves enough time to understand it. And in the IELTS, they will make you apply the wrong form of grammar like tenses. So you need to be very careful and you need to be on the lookout for this. Okay, and tips to overcome is read the passage thoroughly before attempting to answer it. Now, when we say thoroughly, again, you will not have enough time to read 3 passages in 1 hour and answer 40 questions. That is where skimming and scanning techniques come in, speed reading techniques. So just go ahead and thoroughly skim and scan through the passage and get the gist of it, and then understand what you have to write. Now, when we say incorrect grammar, maybe they'll give you a word in the present tense or as an adverb or something like that, and you go ahead and copy that, but it will be grammatically incorrect if you read the answer. So make sure that your grammar is correct. All right. Also, it's recommended to keep coherence between your answer and the central idea of the passage. That's for your understanding in your mind. Make sure that you read through the passage and then you understand that, okay, the question is asking me this, the passage is saying this, so the answer should be this. Okay? All right. Next up is reading the entire passage. Now, I just mentioned this, but I'm going to go in more detail and emphasize on this. Again, in 1 hour, you will not have enough time to read all 3 passages thoroughly. And this is because some passages might be 8 paragraphs in length, and maybe passage 2 might be 3 paragraphs, and passage 3 might be 12 paragraphs. Okay, now imagine you have to read all those paragraphs and answer 40 questions. And again, the different question types that may appear, some of them take longer to answer than others, where you'll have to probably read in a little bit more detail. And in 1 hour, it's really not possible. And also, you're not expected to read the entire passage and understand it completely. What you just need to do is read the question, find the answer, and write it down. Okay? So again, this goes hand in hand with time management. So what you can do to avoid this is read the questions first to know what you're looking for. Okay, read the instructions, read the questions, and then go on to read the passage or just skim through the passage, right? And only think about the required answer. Don't do too much, don't read too ahead. You just need to find it and write it. Okay, so also keep in mind that reading the passage completely, again, like I said, isn't the best approach. It leads to time wastage. So just extract the core idea and start answering. All right. Okay, so again, except in matching exercises, comprehension passages maintain the same question order. So the mistake that students tend to find here is not paying attention to the order of the questions. Okay, so you're going to lose valuable time if you're not concerned about the question order. So what do I mean about the question order? Usually the questions, again, except for matching, like we just discussed, come in order of paragraphs. So if the answer is in the first paragraph for question 1, let's say, then again, second answer will be maybe in the same paragraph or paragraph 2. Similarly, as I have an example here on the screen, if you have underlined the 5th answer and the 6th answer, then the 7th answer is next to that. You don't have to read from the beginning again. Okay, so here what you can do is keep track of where your answers are in the passage, underline or circle them in your question booklet. That would be really helpful. So what I would suggest is, or how I would approach this is, if I'm reading the passage, I'll just go ahead. If I don't have time, I'll just skim through and scan through, and I might find the answer in, let's say, paragraph 4. So I'll underline that. I'll put the question number that it relates to. So maybe the answer to number 3 is in paragraph 4. So I'll write number 3, and then I'll go down and find the answer to number 4, maybe in the same paragraph or in paragraph 5 and or 6. Now do remember that it's not always that the answers will be in the same paragraph, or in the next one it could be down 2 paragraphs as well. So just make sure you're aware of that. And again, this will not apply to matching type questions. Okay, so this is why it's very important to be aware of the different question types in the IELTS test. Okay, spend that time to understand, know how to answer the different question types, know what's being asked of you, so that on the day of your exam, you will not be surprised. You will be like, okay, I've practiced this. I know this is I know how to answer this if it comes up. All right. Okay, so now we're ready for our Q&A session. All right, we just covered all the common errors that students will make or could make rather, during the IELTS academic reading section. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the audience chat and I will answer them. Okay, we do have quite a few questions. Okay, I'll just go through them. Okay, so the first question that we can see here is, what are the parts in the IELTS reading section? So again, the IELTS reading section has 3 parts, you can say, and the parts are basically divided into passages. So they have 3 passages, and again, you'll have to answer 40 questions, which would be divided amongst those 3 passages. Again, they won't be divided equally, so you'll have to make sure that you prepare and practice and go through different question papers so that you understand the whole format of the paper. Okay. All right, good question. What is the best way to prepare for the IELTS reading section? Now, again, I cannot stress this enough. I would say that the best way to prepare for the IELTS reading section is just go through as many past papers or many practice papers as you can so that you are aware of the format, as well as how much time it takes you to answer the question paper as a whole. I would also recommend that you do find out the different question types that are there and go through each and every one to make sure you understand how you can answer it or figure out an approach as to how you would answer it, so that again, on the day of the exam, there are no surprises. You are well prepared. Okay, and I will also suggest that you leave enough time to prepare. Remember that you have 3 other sections, not only the reading section that you need to prepare for. So make sure you leave enough preparation time for yourself to prepare for all the sections. All right, so what are the tips to complete, or what are some tips to complete the IELTS reading section on time, right? So again, just to recap what we discussed here, because some of these are quite useful for the time management part of the reading exam. Again, do not go through and read the whole passage or all 3 passages, because like I said before, you will not have time. In 1 hour, it's not necessary and not impossible, but it's not necessary to read through the whole passage. So just pick up a few speed reading techniques. Again, that would be skimming and scanning, and just read through and get the general gist of the passage and or the paragraphs, so you can just go ahead and answer, as well as go ahead and read the instructions and questions first so that you know what's being asked of you. Okay, those are the 2 main pointers I can give to make sure that you can complete your IELTS reading on time. Again, when you're preparing also, time yourself. Put yourself in that exam environment. So again, I had mentioned this earlier on the talk. What you can do is you can start with a question paper or a practice paper and see how long it takes you. Now, it's okay at the beginning if it takes you, let's say, 2 hours to complete a paper. That's completely fine. As you keep practicing, and I'm talking about practicing the whole question paper. This is after you've learned the different question types and things like that. Keep going and keep reducing the time and try and give yourself that time limit. So maybe if you start with 2 hours, maybe the next time you'll complete the paper in 1 hour, 45 minutes, and then an hour and a half, and so on and so forth, till you get to, I would say, 45 minutes. I know that the question paper lasts for 1 hour, but again, like I told you before, it's better if you can try and complete it in 45 minutes without rushing. And then for sure, there might be some blanks or some answers that you haven't filled in or questions that you've left. So give yourself that 15-minute time to go ahead and check your answers, fill in the blanks, do everything that you have to do so that you can submit a whole paper. Okay. All right. And the last question that we have here is, how difficult is the IELTS reading section? Now, this is quite subjective. Some people might find the paper quite difficult. Some people may find it just a breeze. But a tip to make it easier for you, again, is just practice, 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 and prepare yourself as much as you can. All right? So in that way, it won't be as difficult or intimidating. Okay. All right, we've come to the end of the talk. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. Sorry, I just have one more thing that I want to share. Right, I hope that you were able to understand the common mistakes that usually students commit during the IELTS academic reading module. And now I hope that you're aware of them so that you won't really do that during the exam or in your preparation time. And you also learn some tips in order to avoid those common mistakes. All right. I also want to let you know that we do have a lot more talks happening on nebula.com, upcoming Skylifts, as you can see here. All right, this is to do with scholarships, certifications, real stories from real people, from real scholars studying abroad as well. So do go on to nebula.com and check out the upcoming Skylifts, as well as if you want more IELTS Skylifts or IELTS Nebula talks. I do have one upcoming one later on this month, so do check that out. I also have different various Nebula talks on, again, IELTS topics, as well as personal guidance sessions that you can book. So feel free to do that as well. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I hope this session was helpful for you. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and I will see you soon. Have a good evening.